Good morning, everyone. All the early risers. So I had kind of a talk planned, and then, as often happens, something else guides me. So excuse me if it's a little unpolished, but it's from the heart. So yesterday morning, I had this opportunity to go see one of my favorite poets and authors, David Whyte, speak in LA. And it was a series, yes, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And I won't go into the background, but I had decided not to go because life was too busy and I didn't have the time for it. And it started at 10 o'clock in Santa Monica, and I live in the Valley. And I bought my ticket 10 minutes to 9 a.m., and I made it on time, and I got a front row seat, and it was just magical. And the woman next to me was like, "How'd you get a ticket?" I mean, when I told her when I bought it, she's like, "I think it was sold out." I said I was meant to be here, so I was there. And the reason I want to share my experience there is, if you are not familiar with him, David has an uncanny ability to understand the human experience. It was such a sacred space for those 3 hours. And he goes into really deep topics, everything from death, grief, pain, joy, rebirth, all of it, the human experience, the complete spectrum. And as I looked around the room and felt the energy, the silence, the gasps, the reactions, I realized, oh my goodness, in a room of 300 plus people, we are all having this really universal experience together. And I know oftentimes we feel really alone. It's not the first time I've talked about this, right? But it was a good reminder that we are all connected in our joy and in our grief, in our celebrations and in our sorrow. We're not alone. And for me, listening to his words just helped open up more space for that, open up greater understanding. And also reminded me that maybe people who are not in this room right now need to hear this. So how can I reflect that into the world? Reflect this idea that we are connected, we are one, you are not alone. Even when I'm not at our center or at a David Whyte talk, how can I shine that throughout my days? Am I being an example of that? I'm not always. I know when I am being an example of separation, right? We know when we are. When we are walking through the world with resentment and grudges and irritation, we are separate. That is when we are separate. But when we let that go, when we bring in forgiveness and allowance and love, then we start moving through the world and people can feel that connection. They can feel the walls drop, right? I like to share just a short reading from one of the books I bought yesterday, because I thought of, there are a lot of people I feel like around me who are going through some challenging times right now, and how this life invites us to be courageous. And what does that mean to be courageous? He says, courageous is a word that tempts us to think outwardly, to run bravely against opposing fire, to do something under besieging circumstance, and perhaps above all, to be seen to do it in public, to show courage, to be celebrated in story, rewarded with medals, given the accolade. But a look at its linguistic origins is to look in a more interior direction, and toward its original template, the old Norman French cœur, or heart. Courage is actually the measure of our heartfelt participation with life, with another, with a community, a work, a future. To be courageous is not necessarily to go anywhere or do anything, except to make conscious those things we already feel deeply, and then to live through the unending vulnerability of those consequences. To be courageous is to see our feelings deeply in the body and in the world. To be courageous is to stay close to the way we are made. He invites us to shift our thinking of being courageous as something external, and to remember that being who we are, showing up as our true selves, is the most courageous thing we can do. To go within and express that into the world. And if you think, I can't do that, I'm not courageous, I'd like to leave you with some words from Ernest Holmes. We have within us a power that is greater than anything we shall ever contact in the outer. A power that can overcome every obstacle in our life and set us safe, satisfied and at peace, healed and prosperous, in a new light and in a new life. Thank you.